Understanding tailoring. In this lesson, we'll be taking a closer look at tailoring. We'll be looking at understanding tailoring, knowing what you're allowed, and value in the simple things. Let's start with understanding tailoring. When you take clothes to a tailor, they have the skill to adjust the clothes to fit you perfectly and make you look and feel like $1,000,000. Tailoring service is exactly the same. It's taking the basic design of service and adjusting it in various ways for one individual. By now, you know the design of fantastic service, such as seating the guest professionally, recommending dishes, and checking on your guests to ensure that everything is to their satisfaction. But, in order to provide truly memorable service, you must take these elements and adjust them for different types of guests to create a truly exceptional guest experience. Now let's talk about knowing what you're allowed. It would be wonderful if we could hire a marching band to sing happy birthday to guests. Or shower newlyweds in expensive champagne. Or give each businessman a complimentary tablet. But as you might imagine, it would cost a fortune. Each establishment will have different rules on what is allowed for which types of guests and which types of occasion. So, it is important that you know what is standard or allowed at your establishment. For example, couples celebrating their anniversary might always get a glass of champagne, or birthday guests get a personalized menu. Finally, let's take a look at value in the simple things. It is important to remember that tailoring doesn't have to be expensive. Often, what makes the difference are the little things that simply show you took the time to think of that guest. For example, simply congratulating the guest on a birthday as they arrive is a form of tailoring. And how much did that cost? Nothing. Just the effort to check the day sheet before they arrived. So in this lesson, we looked at understanding tailoring, knowing what you're allowed, and value in the simple things. As an activity, make a list of all the ways in which you can tailor service that don't cost anything. Discuss it with your colleagues and see if you can implement these at your establishment as standard. Tailoring for special occasions. Guests will often visit your establishment to celebrate a special occasion, such as a birthday, wedding anniversary, or even to propose marriage. On these special occasions, there are a number of ways in which we can make the day extra special. To provide memorable service, we'll be looking at the following points: congratulating the guests, providing complimentary champagne, singing a special song, personalized menus, taking photos, and keeping secrets. First, let's look at congratulating the guest. This is one of the easiest and inexpensive ways of making the guest feel special. By simply checking the day sheet, you can congratulate them on arrival. For example, "Good evening, Mr. Smith, and congratulations on your birthday." Or, "Congratulations on your engagement, Mr. Franklin and Miss Green." This is easy to do, whether you are at a fine dining restaurant or a bistro. Next, let's look at providing complimentary champagne. Champagne is the ultimate celebratory drink, and so it may be your establishment's policy to provide a complimentary glass to guests celebrating special occasions. Make sure you know exactly what the policy is in this regard, and ensure that you are consistent. Next, let's look at singing. Your establishment may sing for guests on their birthday or other occasions to congratulate them from the whole team. If so, make sure you know the song and practice it. If you're not great at holding a tune, rather sing a bit softer.
Happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
Happy birthday, dear Danelle. Happy
birthday
to you.
Now let's look at providing personalized menus. If your menu is of such a design that it can be changed relatively easily, a great touch is to personalize the menu to congratulate and welcome them. This also shows that you cared enough to prepare for the guest in advance. Let's look at taking photos next. Guests will often want to eternalize their memories by taking photos of the special day. If you see that the guests are taking photos, offer to take a photo of all the guests. If you are behind the camera, the whole group can be in the photo. Position yourself so that all the guests are in frame. Remember to put the strap around your arm so that if you drop it or get knocked, the camera is still safe. Finally, let's look at keeping secrets. When guests are celebrating special occasions, one of the guests may have a surprise planned. For example, guests may bring a cake and ask you to bring it out with candles lit. Some guests may even propose to their partner at your establishment and ask that you hide the ring in the food. Obviously, you will accommodate the guests as best as possible, but also ensure that nothing you do ruins the surprise. For example, don't go to the table and ask if they are ready for the cake. And definitely don't congratulate the guests on their engagement when the guest hasn't proposed yet. If you spoil the surprise, the guest might have to rush the proposal, which will ruin the special moment. To recap, in this lesson we looked at these details: congratulating the guests, providing complimentary champagne, singing a special song, personalized menus, taking photos, and keeping secrets. Good luck helping your guests to create memories to last a lifetime. Tailoring for couples. When couples join you for a romantic meal, there are a few ways that you can make their experience extra special. We'll be looking at seating, timing the meal, and recommendations. Let's start with how you can tailor seating for couples. Try to seat the guests at a quiet table, away from any loud tables or families with children. This will help to keep noise levels down and romance up. If the couple is seated in a private dining area, you can dim the lights a bit and add a few extra candles and flowers to make it even more romantic. Next, let's look at how you can adjust the timing of the meal. Couples enjoying a romantic dinner have generally set special time aside to be there. This means that you can stretch the timing of the meal out a bit more. When greeting the guests, ask whether they would first like to have a sundowner while enjoying the view, for example. Having a bit more time also allows you to keep your service less interrupted. Because the guests aren't in a rush, you can wait for natural lulls or pauses in the conversation, rather than having to interrupt to present the menu or take their orders. Finally, let's look at how you can tailor your recommendations for couples. When making recommendations for couples, try to include dishes that involve sharing, such as a seafood platter for two, or tapas as a starter. This way, both guests can share the delicious flavors as they share each other's company. So to recap, when serving couples, you can tailor the seating, timing the meal, and recommendations. Good luck creating a romantic environment for your guests. Tailoring for elderly guests. In this lesson, we'll be looking at some ways that you can tailor for the elderly guests visiting your establishment. We'll be looking at seating and timing of the meal. Let's start with seating. When seating your elderly guests, bear in mind that elderly guests often can't walk up flights and flights of stairs. Rather, seat them on the ground floor. Elderly guests also sometimes get cold more easily, so ensure that they are not seated in a draft, and continuously observe your guests throughout the evening to check that they aren't cold. If so, adjust the temperature, close a window, or offer the guests blankets. Now let's talk about timing. Elderly guests may not want to have a long, drawn-out dinner, or might visit your establishment earlier than other dinner guests. Depending on the time your elderly guests arrive, adjust your timing to ensure their dining experience doesn't go on too late. Combine your menu orientation and recommendations, for example, or stagger your orders to make sure your elderly guests are served first. So, now you know more about seating elderly guests and the timing of their meal. Good luck tailoring your service for your elderly guests. Tailoring for families and children. In this lesson, we'll take a look at how you can tailor service for your younger guests. When it comes to children, there are two types of guests to consider: the children, but also the parents. The key thing to remember is that happy children make for happy parents. We'll be looking at seating children, timing the meal, and special touches. Let's start with seating your younger guests. If you have guests with young children, it's great service to seat them somewhere separate from the other guests, where they will have more space to play, and the parents don't have to worry about their children disturbing the other guests. If you have a children's menu at your establishment, also bring it at this time. Your establishment might have some activities or toys for your younger guests, such as coloring books or games. Make sure you bring these too. Next, let's look at timing. Children often get hungry earlier than adults and can get very restless when they do. A great touch when serving families is to ask the parents if you may take the children's orders first and bring their food out earlier. This way, the children's tummies will be full and your adult guests can relax. When taking the children's orders, make sure to check with the parents if the children have any dietary restrictions, allergies, or preferences. To finish, let's look at some other special touches when serving children. Some other special touches with younger guests is to have nappies and bibs available in case the parents run out. From a safety point of view, also remove any sharp knives or fragile items from the setting to prevent accidents or injury to the younger guests. Whenever you engage with your younger guests, bend down to their eye level to show that you are friendly and that they are important to you. To recap, in this lesson, we looked at seating children, timing the meal, and special touches. Good luck tailoring your service to children. Tailoring for business people. You may welcome guests at your establishment that are there for a business lunch or dinner, or are simply traveling and are there to enjoy a quick meal. The focus with these guests is usually on the practical aspect of dining, rather than the social. Again, there are a few ways in which we can make businessmen and women's stay more efficient and tailored. We'll be looking at seating, timing, and special touches. Let's start with how to tailor seating for business people. When seating business people, they may be there to work. If so, seat them in a quiet part of the restaurant. They will also often be working on a laptop or tablet, and this would be a great time to recharge. Seat the guest near an electrical outlet or socket and offer to plug in the charger for them. Also ensure that there is enough space for laptops and notepads, so remove table decor if necessary. Provide the guest with a pen if you notice they don't have one. Next, let's look at timing the dining experience for business people. Business guests are often not there for a leisurely meal. Rather, they are multitasking, eating while working, whether it's for a meeting, working on their laptop, or making calls. For this reason, it's great tailoring to fast-paced service. Don't give long, drawn-out recommendations, but rather recommend dishes that you know are delicious and quick if a business guest is dining alone. Keep it to the point and efficient. Let's finish off with special touches. Business guests may also often require internet access while at your establishment. If your establishment provides internet access to guests via Wi-Fi, ensure that you know the password or have the passcode cards with you. Business guests don't want to be held up by lack of internet access. Also ensure that you have mobile chargers for the popular brands at hand if the guest needs one. To summarize, you should know more about tailoring for business people in these ways: seating, timing, and special touches. Are there any other ways that you can think of to make your business guests' visit more efficient? Make a list of your ideas and share them with your colleagues at your next service meeting. Tailoring for food enthusiasts. People who are enthusiastic about food and wine, foodies, might frequent your establishment, particularly at a fine dining restaurant. It's great to be able to spot these guests and tailor your service for them. We'll be looking at seating, timing and recommendation, and special touches. Let's start with seating foodie guests. If you know that your guests are enthusiastic about food and restaurants, and you have counter-style service or an open kitchen, they may enjoy sitting near to the kitchen, where they can watch the chefs work their magic. Alternatively, if your restaurant has other food-related features, such as a wine display, they may also enjoy sitting there. Now let's look at tailoring your timing. These guests are there to enjoy the culinary delights of your establishment, so take the time to describe the dishes and explain exactly what they are. If you know interesting facts about the suppliers of certain ingredients, be sure to share this information. Finally, let's look at some special touches. Sometimes, foodie guests may request a tour of the kitchen or wine cellar. Try to accommodate their request as best as possible, and make sure you know your establishment's policy in this regard. If you can take guests back of house or into special wine areas, ensure to check with the chef beforehand and ensure that everything is clean and tidy. You can then take your guests through and explain the points of interest. Also be sure to explain to them that the kitchen must give its full attention to the dishes and interaction will be minimal in order to provide amazing dishes to all guests. At the end of their meal, you can also present the guest with a menu to take home and remember their special dining experience by. So to recap, in this lesson, we looked at the following ways to tailor your service for food enthusiasts. We looked at seating, timing and recommendation, and special touches. Good luck providing food enthusiasts with an exceptional dining experience. Tailoring for guests with special needs. In this lesson, we'll take a look at how to best serve guests with special needs, and how to adjust your service and communication. Remember that with any special needs guest, if you are unsure how to help the guest, simply ask them, rather than not helping at all. We'll be looking at guests with limited mobility, visually impaired guests, and guests with communication difficulties. Let's start by looking at guests with limited mobility. Whether the guest is in a wheelchair or on crutches, ensure that they are seated somewhere they can access easily, but at the same time not feel that they are in the way. It would be very inconvenient for the guest to constantly be knocked or bumped. Also ensure that guests with limited mobility are close to the restrooms and fire exits for their safety and convenience. Never ever move a guest in a wheelchair without asking permission first. This is incredibly rude. As with any other guest, always check up on these guests regularly to ensure that they have everything they need. Next, let's look at visually impaired guests. Once seated, try to keep the items on the table in the same place, while removing any items that won't be needed. Talk directly to the guest and offer to read them the menu and wine list. When delivering their dish to the table, offer to describe where the food is on the plate. For example, the meat is at 12 o'clock and the vegetables are at 3 o'clock. With foods that require heavier cutting, such as steak, offer to cut up the food for the guest. Now let's look at guests with communication difficulties. Some guests at your establishment may be hard of hearing, while others may be foreign and not speak the language well or at all. In this case, ensure that you speak clearly and directly to the guest. Use the simplest language possible. Always repeat orders and requests back to the guest slowly to ensure that you understood correctly and miscommunication is kept to a minimum. To summarize, in this lesson, we looked at adjusting service for guests with limited mobility, visually impaired guests, and guests with communication difficulties. Good luck providing excellent service to guests with special needs at your establishment. Return guests. Your return guests are some of your most special guests. They enjoyed visiting your establishment so much the first time that they chose to come back again and again and again. Tailoring for these guests shows that you appreciate their support for your establishment and is sure to keep them returning. We'll be looking at the importance of communication handover and special touches. Let's start with the importance of communication handover. In order to successfully tailor for return guests, communication is vital. You won't always be the waiter serving the guest, and so you have to communicate the return guest's information to your colleagues. The pre-service meeting is the perfect opportunity. When going through the guests for service, be sure to share any information on the guest you served before. For example, their water preference, allergens, or favorite aperitif. Now let's look at special touches. With effective communication, there are a number of ways in which you can tailor for return guests. The guest may also have a specific table where they like to sit, and if so, always try to provide the guest with that table. Obviously, you will use their name when talking to them, but you can also tailor your communication by referring to their preferences from their previous visit. For example, "Mr. Rogers, may I offer you a Heineken to start off the evening again, or would you prefer something else to drink?" Similarly, you should include any of the guest preferences throughout service, such as water preference, favorite dishes, and switching cutlery for left-handed guests. In tailoring for return guests, you now know more about the importance of communication handover and special touches. Chat with your team and make a list of the ways in which you can effectively communicate guest information for when they return. Good luck!